Trails into Reverie has a lot of playable characters, 51 to be exact, and hearing that number probably sounds daunting. Luckily though, you don't need to manage 51 characters at once, as most of the time you won't even have access to all of them. This is because which characters you can actually use at any given time is based on which main character's route you are currently following, that being Lloyd, Rean, or C's routes. Over the course of the next few videos, I will be showcasing the characters available for each route, including those only available in the Reverie corridor, and offering some build advice for the stronger characters. I plan to conclude this character showcase series with a video showcasing how each route can take infinite turns in its own separate video, as the old methods no longer work in Reverie. But for now, let's start by taking a look at the characters available on Rean's route. By now you should be familiar with Rean and how he plays, especially because in Reverie he is basically a carbon copy of himself from Cold Steel 4. The only real difference being his spirit unification craft, which changes in power level depending on where you are in the story. I should note though that the zero delay caster build that was possible in Cold Steel 4 is no longer possible in Reverie due to changes with how self-delay works. I'll go more into this in my video on taking infinite turns, but as a TLDR, it is now impossible to hit zero delay through speed in Reverie. As such, a standard build focusing on speed, strength, crit rating, and CP generation tends to work best for Rean. I found that a combination of his starting Master Quartz Kagetsuchi combined with Gungnir struck a nice balance of CP generation when combined with CP generating accessories, as well as a nice boost to Rean's critical damage. But there is a lot of room for flexibility with Rean, so feel free to experiment and see what you like best on him. Yuna is just as much the powerhouse in Reverie as she was in Cold Steel 3 and 4. She has excellent versatility with her ability to swap between Striker and Gunner modes, letting her adapt to any situation. That being said, her Gunner mode is the more powerful of the two and will generally be what you want to focus on. While in Gunner mode, Yuna's basic attack becomes AoE, as do some of her crafts, and her ornament sports 4 lines allowing Yuna to load up on status ailment inflicting quartz, a combination that turns Yuna into a machine at crippling enemies with status ailments. Toss on the Murakumo Master Quartz just to add some insult to injury. Yuna can also manipulate your BP with her self-buffing craft Burning Heart, granting her a sizable boost in both strength and defense, as well as increasing your current BP by 1. And while situational due to its hefty 80 CP cost, Yuna can also manipulate your team's turn order with Quickstar, granting accelerate and a speed increase to all teammates. Kurt is an interesting one. He has access to some useful crafts in the form of Rain Slash and Twilight Blades, giving him access to delay and impede at reasonable CP costs. But this does come at the cost of split scaling, with Rain Slash, and really most of his kit, being physical, whereas Twilight Blades is a magic scaling craft. However, since Twilight Blades is the only part of his kit that is magic scaling, you do generally want to treat him as a physical attacker for gearing purposes. A nice buff that Kurt got coming into Reverie is in the form of his self-buffing craft, Blade Dance, which now no longer stuns him at the end of its duration. The same though can't be said about his Brave Order, which is still suffering from the nerfs it received after Cold Steel 3. Continuing on with more powerhouse characters from Cold Steel and New Class 7, we have Altina. She boasts a high base magic stat and a fantastic ornament lineup for further boosting her magic capabilities. On top of being able to become a top tier caster, Altina also has some great crafts at her disposal. RTM Heal restores 30% HP to all allies hit, increases their defense by up to 50% for 4 turns, and restores 30 CP. And Ebon Shade not only lets her go into stealth for 2 turns, it also provides her with 2 instances of Reflect Physical. While not as cheap as the stealth crafts that Risha and Fi gain access to, at 60 CP Altina can still maintain permanent uptime on the stealth buff, effectively giving her 100% chance to critically strike and making her invincible. And if all that wasn't enough, Altina's Brave Order provides 4 counts of Absolute Reflect while simultaneously healing the party for 20% HP and EP. Ash is your typical hard-hitting character. In a sense, he resembles Randy and Agat from Lloyd's route, except that his ability to generate CP isn't quite as instantaneous as theirs, generating 100 total CP over 2 turns instead of in one go. The trade-off being that Ash gains a huge strength increase and doesn't need to sacrifice his HP in the process, something that can be both a good and a bad thing depending on how you look at it. Perhaps Ash's biggest strength though is his Voidbreaker craft, which boasts an S+ damage rating and an SS break rating, while also applying a huge defense down debuff to the enemy. His Brave Order also isn't anything to scoff at, providing 5 counts of 50% increased critical strike rating for only 2 BP. Mise is your typical support caster, filling a similar role as Ellie and Tio did from Lloyd's route. Her ornament layout consists of 2 water slots and 1 space slot, making her one of the better characters to set up as a pure healer. but she can also support the group through her crafts as well, with multiple crafts that have a high chance of applying various status ailments, and a 40 CP healing craft that heals 30% HP while also removing any status ailments and debuffs. It can also revive any down characters as well. Claire is the Lector of Rean's route. She's neither strong nor weak. In general though, she is stronger than Lector, having access to delay and a chance to cause instant death, as well as a high chance to freeze enemies with her crafts. She can also be played as either a caster or ranged physical character with a relatively even spread between strength and ATS, and a self-buffing craft that increases both by a good amount. The most interesting thing about Claire though is her Brave Order. It's a hefty cost at 5 BP, but for 1 count it applies Accelerate on your party and increases break damage by a whopping 400%. Elise is a surprise character in Reverie. Her kit is small but very useful, and she is tied with Waji as being the fastest caster type character in the game with a 111 base speed. Swallowtail is a magic scaling craft that interrupts enemies in a line for the low cost of only 20 CP, and Holy Squall can restore 60% HP, 15 CP, remove all status ailments, and debuffs from your allies for only 50 CP. And on top of all of that, she can also increase her own strength, magic, and speed for 4 turns with her self-buffing craft, Meikyo Shisui. All in all, she is a surprisingly strong support caster in Reverie. Millium is a strong physical character that can hit in a wide area and also boasts good defenses. That being said, she is kind of in an unfortunate position. Her high defenses combined with her craft, Ultimate Barrier, which provides up to 2 instances of Reflect Physical, means she can function quite well as a tank for your party. The unfortunate part of this is that there is another character on Rean's route who fills this role significantly better. This leaves Millium to fill the role of physical attacker. However, we do run into another issue with her here, and that is her abysmal speed stat. While not quite as crippling as Tita's speed stat from Lloyd's route, Millium still has the 3rd lowest speed stat in the entire game, causing her to be a liability on higher difficulties. Much like in the Cold Steel series, Yushis remains a character who tries to straddle the line between that of a physical and magic attacker, and partially because of this, he is sadly a rather lackluster offensive unit. That being said, he does have some very nice supporting crafts at his disposal, which can certainly earn him a spot in your lineup. Treasure Sword is a little pricey at 60 CP, but it can interrupt enemy spells, has a chance to freeze enemies when it hits, and can cause delay. But the real interesting craft he gains access to is Platinum Shield, which for 50 CP heals allies for up to 30% HP while also providing 2 turns of absolute defense, something usually relegated to Brave Orders, S-crafts, or very costly spells. Just like in the Cold Steel series, Elliot is a support caster who leans towards the healing role. His orbment layout supports this with 2 forced space slots and 1 forced water slot, and his crafts further push him in this direction as well. His S-craft is a massive full HP heal that will revive any downed characters, while also providing a 50% HP heal every turn for 2 turns thereafter, alongside a small CP per turn buff to everyone in your party. Elliot also has Holy Song, a 40 CP craft that heals everyone in a large radius around himself for 40% HP, while also dispelling any status ailments and debuffs. And his Brave Order provides a very solid 70% damage reduction for 10 counts and an upfront 30% HP heal for the low cost of only 3 BP. His offensive stats may not be the best, but if you need healing, Elliot is one of the better options. Crow is a fast character that can be built as either a physical or magic attacker, and has the versatility to swap between an up-close melee style or ranged attacking style similar to Yuna. And regardless of which way you choose to build him, his self-buffing craft Destiny Blue will help out, providing a large increase to his strength, ATS, and speed for 7 turns. If you do choose to play him as a physical unit, you can make good use of Criminal Edge, a 60 CP cost craft that hits in a small circle with a respectable A+ break rating, built-in delay, and a base 20% chance to critically strike. When choosing to go this route, stacking lots of CP per turn on Crow is advised as he can be very CP hungry. If you want to make him a caster, your main priority will be getting enough CP per turn to cover the 100 CP cost of his self buff to allow for permanent uptime, while throwing out arts every turn that he isn't buffing himself. Emma is another support caster who specializes in being an anti-magic defense option while simultaneously offering good offensive capabilities due to her raw ATS value being so high. Serene Blessing is a craft she has access to that has an absurd value for how cheap it is, healing all party members in a medium circle for 20% HP, curing all status ailments and debuffs, reviving fallen party members, restoring their CP by up to 50, and providing 1 instance of Reflect Magic. The only real downside with this craft is that Emma herself doesn't benefit. She does, however, benefit from her S-Craft, which provides a heal over time to the entire party, healing 30% HP every turn for 2 turns, while also providing up to 2 instances of Absolute Reflect. Finally, her Brave Order is also quite good against magic-based enemies, as it causes all magic damage to be absorbed for 8 counts for the low BP cost of only 2. Coming into Reverie, Sarah retains her place as the best dodge tank in the entire series, combining a self buff that provides a huge amount of dodge rating with the ability to counterattack in both melee and at range. That self buff, True Lightning Charge, increases Sarah's strength and speed by a large amount for 4 turns, and more importantly for tanking purposes, provides her with 50% physical dodge rating for 3 turns. And at only 40 CP, it is very easy to keep up indefinitely. Combined with her innate 5% dodge, this puts Sarah at a base 55% physical dodge, meaning you only need to find 45% more to hit 100% chance to dodge physical attacks. Something that is actually very easy to do, and frees up the rest of her equipment and quartz slots to increase things like magic dodge and her overall damage output. Speaking of magic dodge, I recommend giving her the Aegis Master Quartz in her primary Master Quartz slot, with the Sirius Master Quartz in her secondary slot. Doing it this way does give up 10% free physical dodge from the Sirius Master Quartz, but in return you gain 30% magic dodge from Aegis, along with up to 3 counts of Perfect Reflect. And with the addition of higher tier quartz and accessories in Reverie, finding 70% more magic dodge and 45% physical dodge is very doable, turning Sarah into a tank that has a 100% chance to dodge almost all attacks and counterattack for a huge amount of damage. I say almost because Reverie does include some enemies with attacks that can't be dodged, but this is where the Perfect Reflect from Aegis comes in. And should you find yourself in a long battle in which all 3 charges get used up, Aegis also allows Sarah to cast Adamant Shield, giving her more charges of Perfect Reflect. Going a little out of order with how I've been ordering these characters in my showcase videos, I want to talk about Fie next. The main reason being that Fie is also often used as a dodge tank due to her 30% innate physical dodge rating that she retains in Reverie, while also having the same ability that Sarah does to counterattack at melee and at range. However, there are multiple reasons why I don't recommend this path for her. The primary one is that Sarah just performs the role better. She hits harder than Fie and doesn't need to give up the use of her self buff in order to fill the role of tank like Fie does. Another reason is that, well, they're both on the same route, and you don't need 2 tanks on the same route. Finally, there is just a much better use for Fie than tanking. You see, Fie is a very similar style character to Risha from Lloyd's route. She gains access to a 40 CP self buff that provides 2 turns of stealth, and at 40 CP, can easily be maintained for 100% uptime on the stealth buff, which in turn gives Fie an effective 100% chance to critically strike, and makes her invincible so long as you maintain that stealth buff. Should you choose to make Fie your dodge tank instead, you give up this perma-stealth build for no real gain. Gaius fills the role that Randy and Agat did in Lloyd's route. That is, he is a character who is really meant to be cycling through his self-buffing craft and then his S-craft. Gaius' self-buff lowers his HP by 40% and restores 80 CP while also buffing his strength and defense by a medium amount. And his S-craft hits all enemies for large amounts of damage and also has the unique absolute delay mechanic guaranteeing that Gaius will apply delay to enemies' hits. Because of this, the best way to build him is to give him the Chevalier Master Quartz, which will increase the damage of his S-craft based on how low his current HP is, and to give him Delay Quartz since those will stack with the absolute delay mechanic of his S-craft. Unfortunately though, while the mechanic is called Absolute Delay, it has been nerfed since Cold Steel 4 with the addition of enemies, mainly bosses, that are completely immune to all forms of delay, and also through the addition of the Abyss difficulty. Immunity to delay is self-explanatory, but Abyss difficulty is a bit different. When playing on the Abyss, even if you delay an enemy with Gaius' S-craft, enemy speed values are so high that it effectively does nothing in most cases. Laura is a very straightforward character with a primary focus on hitting hard. Unfortunately for her though, she's quite slow, and not even among the top physical damage dealers in the game to make up for her lack of speed, putting her overall position into question. To best make use of her though, consider giving her the Minotauro's Master Quartz and abandoning speed altogether in favor of pumping her damage as high as possible. From there, swap who she is linked with in battle every turn so that she is linked with whoever is attacking. That way when you generate a follow-up attack, it will be Laura performing that attack. And then whenever her CP is at 100 or more, have her use her S-craft for a big hit of damage and repeat. Finally, to close out the characters available on Rean's route, we have Celine. Celine is a caster-type character with supporting crafts, and much like with her kit in the Cold Steel series, she doesn't have an S-craft in Reverie. That being said, the 2 crafts that she does have access to are quite potent, albeit expensive at 100 CP each. 9 lives removes all debuffs and status ailments from all party members, restores up to 4 BP, and once upgraded also provides everyone with 20 CP. And Crimson Tail is a hard-hitting triple S damage attack that also has an S+ break rating that hits in a very large circular area. Because of how expensive these crafts are, you're going to want to build Celine with their cost in mind. As such, focus on making her a pure caster type, and then give her the Arc Diva and Beowulf Master Quartz, with Arc Diva being in the primary slot and Beowulf in the sub-slot. This setup will maximize how much CP Celine recovers when casting arts, while also increasing her chance to critically strike with those arts. Well, there you have it, a quick showcase on all of the characters you'll have access to on Rean's route and Trails into Reverie. If you found this video helpful and informative, please be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Also, if you have any questions about this video, Trails into Reverie, or any other game that I cover, feel free to hit me up over on Twitch at twitch.tv/RosalindGaming, or my Discord server, both of which are linked in the video description below. Until next time, take care.